Hey everybody, we're Shayem and Chris, and this is Fan Team Radio. And we are back after a well-needed summer break, back for the Dutch Grand Prix. Chris, what's up?
Yeah, well-needed summer break. Unfortunately, we have another one coming up. I didn't realize there was going to be a second month-long break this year. That's crazy, but...
I mean, football season's coming up, so we got something to distract us.
What's football? It was good.
Oh, I forgot.
No, but yeah,
You're not a real man.
The great, yeah, TBD. But the Grand Prix was great. For the most part, the Dutch have finally been dethroned at this race ever since it's brought back in 2021. Max has won every single year until now. And it looks like McLaren is the de facto new dominant car. That win margin is kind of insane. So, it's going to shake up the rest of the year for sure.
I mean, I thought I hated it when Max was getting podiums. Now I have to watch Norris get podiums. So, life is life.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting the rest of the season because if Lando wins out the rest of the year, the championship is his, which at the start of this year, nobody even thought there would even be a question mark. I mean, this is what, the fourth race in a row that Max hasn't won?
Yeah, I wonder what the Vegas odds were at the top of the year as opposed to what they are now. There's a 70-point gap between Lando and Max right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I brought up before the season started, that Vegas odds had Lando as second most likely to win WDC, which I thought was a little crazy to do considering he had never won a race before in his life. So apparently they had the sports almanac from Back to the Future because things are looking a little potential. I mean, Red Bull's really on the back foot here. I think when Adrian Newey left, he unplugged something and didn't tell anybody because that car.
He probably unplugged something and told the Vegas bettors how to set the lines.
Hey, wouldn't that be crazy if Adrian put down a huge bet on Lando and knew he was leaving mid-season? Sabotage. But that car looked atrocious. The Red Bull looked atrocious. There was a video that I saw of Max going around a turn. I think it was turn 10, and the car just would absolutely not turn.
So the first lap was a little bit misleading. It definitely played into the narrative that Norris is not great off the first lap, especially with the shortest.
I think Lando just wants to watch Max go around the track so he knows the best line, and then he passes him.
I think, that could be it. But, what I saw in the replay and what a lot of other, pundits were referring to was that, Norris just couldn't get the power right off the line and get the grip that he needed. And I think Max just had a little bit on him. But then I think it was very telltale of the performance of the overall cars is the laps right after, the first lap, right? So if you break it down, by lap 17, Verstappen is actually off the racing line by a bit, which causes the gap to Norris to lessen to less than half a second. He then starts reporting, Max does, that the tires have no grip. Seem oddly calm about it all too, so I want to throw that out there. By lap 18, Norris is overtaking Verstappen right at the start line. By lap 24, Norris is extending his pace to about 3.7 seconds over Max. At this point, Max reports that the car is not responding to his inputs, which also was much more calm than I thought he would be. Which I don't know if I should read into that or not. That's probably let's keep an eye on that, Chris, why he's so calm about this. By lap 28, Norris pits to cover Verstappen, which isn't even really necessary. He's so far ahead of Verstappen that he's able to cover him pretty quickly or pretty easily, even with a relatively slow pit stop. By lap 40, Norris has extended the gap to 10 seconds ahead of Verstappen, and by lap 70, he's 20 seconds ahead of Verstappen. So, I mean, even with that initial snafu that I think both McLaren cars had in terms of getting traction and getting power down immediately off the line, they more than made up for it in the throughout the rest of the race. is it, is it a fluke? Is it not a fluke? That's left to be seen, right? Is F1's one of those things where things can change from week to week, where things can stay absolutely stagnant or the same. This is quite a bit of a difference. 20 seconds, it's not like I was expecting Norris to lose or anything, but 20-second gap to Verstappen. I think there's something else at play here that I'd love for technical folks on the F1 side to diagnose for me so I can kind of steal it from them and present it as my own. But I have yet to see a report of why exactly the McLaren pace was so much better than, or at least Lando's pace was so much better than Max. But, what do you think, Chris? Do you have any thoughts on the why behind the big gap?
I mean, there's a million different reasons, right? I mean, it could have been a little bit of setup. I mean, Zandvoort is very, heavy in the tight turns. It's almost kind of like a go-kart track in that sense. There's like a lot of banking that doesn't really exist on other tracks. So, if Max is having trouble turning his car, and there's a lot of really intricate turns at this track, then he's going to lose a lot of time. Um, fundamentally, the Red Bull could just not be optimal, and McLaren could be outpacing them. And it really does seem like the McLarens are much better on their tires than the Red Bulls at least for the moment, which is kind of surprising because that used to be Red Bull's bread and butter, is like really getting the life out of those tires, especially with Max behind the wheel. So I think Monza will be like a much better test for the actual true difference in speed. We got a lot of straight line speed at Monza, a lot less really tight, intricate turns. And so I guess we'll see the true pace if the McLaren is that much faster than the Red Bull. The thing that's really difficult to always tell is the pace coming from Max or the car? Because it does look like the McLaren is just a rocket ship at the moment, and Perez is still kind of not getting up there in the podium places. Somebody made a really good point. I don't know if you remember the Force India debacle, like back in the day when the pink Mercedes, and people was like, what if it wasn't Sergio and Lance in that car? Like if it was Max and Lewis, how fast would that car have truly been? And I think that that's a good point for this situation. Like, without Max in that car, would it have been, P9, P10 for the Red Bulls? Um, so, but yeah, I don't think we're gonna really know what the actual true fact of why Red Bull was so like slow here, even though Max still gets P2. It's just crazy because it looked like a miserable drive. But um, yeah, I don't think we'll know until Monza. But if there is this gap in Monza, then Red Bull is in very much serious trouble for both championships.
Yeah, I think what's keeping me from kind of dedicating myself to Lando and the McLaren package as the outright, champion of this year is kind of looking at Oscar's performance. He finished P4. Charles Leclerc, which we'll talk about in a bit, but kept him at bay. Um, and Oscar has been up until now kind of comparable in terms of performance with Lando. So maybe Lando just pulled an extra gear out of his butt that we didn't think he had in him. At least I didn't. Uh, will this stay consistent throughout the rest of the year? That's left to be seen. But from what we saw this weekend, he put together the perfect package, car and driver. So I'll tip my hat to him for this weekend. But I hope that doesn't continue throughout the rest of this year. Uh, as you know, I'd rather see Max Verstappen win the WDC than Lando Norris.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting between Lando and Oscar. You know, we already saw when Oscar won that Lando had that extra gear where he was really putting it to the test, and McLaren was forced to come over the radio and kind of push Lando behind. So I think Lando overall just has more experience in F1, and he's had more experience with McLaren. And so I think he can find that extra gear when he needs to. But I do think Oscar is a comparable driver, if not potentially maybe a better driver in the long run. But it still is only his second year in F1. and he's already doing some incredible things. I mean, most people don't get a race win in their first 2 years, and Oscar has done exactly that. So, but I think Lando's made some mistakes, but overall, he's just going to be slightly faster, um, especially now that he knows that there's a championship potentially on the line. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I actually thought Oscar should have podiumed at this race, and it was amazing that Charles was able to hold on to that, given where we all thought the Ferrari would be. But we have seen in multiple races, especially in the last like 4 or 5, that being in dirty air has a huge disadvantage. And so, catching a car is very different than passing a car. Um, so I think maybe that lended to Charles' favor a little bit, but still very impressive drive from him. And Oscar qualifying P3 and then finishing a place behind that is a little disappointing. So
I mean, I'm
um,
going to keep hating on Norris as long as he's on track. So I'll stick to those laurels. But yeah, let's pivot to someone that I thought had a quite impressive race, but maybe quite diluted given the fact that he is an Alpine. Alpine recently switched to a new team principal, Ollie Oakes. I believe they promoted him internally from the F2 team, which he actually did quite well with. But I want to talk about Pierre Gasly. I think he had a great overall race. In contrast to Esteban Ocon, who came in P15. Gasly started at the P9 position and jumped up to P7 right off the get go, which is pretty impressive to see. I didn't think that the Alpine had it in them to be able to do that. And then by the second lap, he maintains that P7, keeps Alonso at bay. I like to call all this a Ollie Oaks effect. Hopefully that catches on. But like by lap 30, he's still holding off Hamilton for P8. By lap 40, he passes Albon into this crazy 3 car turn into turn one, and gets maintains P10, and then he finally passes up Hulkenberg by lap 60 for P9. I thought Gasly had a really strong race, especially putting that Alpine in positions that in some instances were precarious. He almost collided with Hamilton in that lap 23 kind of battle for P8. But by and large, he kept everything pretty kosher. He kept the car in between the lines, and I think he found opportunities to strike when he had them. So I think Pierre Gasly had probably one of the more impressive races today. What do you think about this change in leadership, Chris? We've obviously talked ad nauseum about Alpine and kind of the dumpster fire that they've been in for the past 2 years. It seems like, even with all the celebrity endorsements and sponsorships, they seem like they've just been kind of going further, retreating back, especially now that they're going to kind of concede their own engines to become a customer of Mercedes. It all seemed like it was on the downturn for them, but now they announced that they're going to put in Jack Doohan into that seat, someone that I guess hasn't really showed the kind of outstanding talents that we probably saw from Ollie Behrman and Liam Lawson, and what we're expecting to see from Kimi Antonelli. But it seems like a completely different chapter in the team's book. Do you think these are positive signs? Do you think that Ollie Oaks coming in and the success that he had with the F2 team is going to translate well into the F1 team? What are your just initial thoughts based on the first race back from the summer break?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's still early to tell, but this was a positive result from Gasly, who will be the driver who is sticking with the team. Um, I think any change,
Or another way to say that, Chris, is the driver that the team is sticking with.
exactly. But I think any change is potentially positive. They were kind of at rock bottom before going through multiple changes. There was lots of turmoil. We saw in Drive to Survive, with many, many drama instances with them, between the drivers, between the inner workings of the team. So I think this can't be a negative move. Like, they couldn't have gotten, any worse unless they swap positions with Kick Sauber, because who knows what's going on with that team. But, I like Alpine, so I'll want to see positive results for them, and this looks like at least a step in the right direction. And then once we get a little bit better driver pairing, um, we'll see what they can do with the team. You'll see like if they can the cohesion between everyone. I'm still a little skeptical on the Doohan selection, just because of what you mentioned that where's the upgrade? Like, obviously we haven't seen his performance in F1, but there hasn't been a whole lot of murmurs about his outstanding talent. I mean, apparently he had a driving test against Mick Schumacher, and they were kind of comparable, and Mick wasn't anything super special in his time in F1. So, maybe they just need someone who's not going to crash the car, but I think that they really need someone who's going to develop the team, and we'll see if he's capable of doing that. But you know, as long as Ollie Oaks can you know keep positive morale within the team and actually make some decisive decisions on how to bring things forward, then I think he has that expertise from F2 to translate over here. There's always the fear that the turmoil resides somewhere above everyone that we have access to. So we'll see if we're able to overcome that, because it
And
seems.
then, yeah, I think to that point, I think having Mattia join the team next year formally, and then having him work closely with Ollie Oaks, two people that Ollie came from within the Alpine system, so he understands the inner workings. Mattia coming from externally, but overseeing a team like Ferrari in the past. I think that might be a concoction for good rather than not. I think taking Ocon out of the situation and letting Gasly kind of pair up with someone who is also somewhat vanilla, benign. I think Jack Doohan has done a lot of background work for Alpine and seems like a company man. So we've seen how company men typically translate on track, and by that I mean Charles Leclerc. You know, they're they're there. They're however the team needs them to whatever capacity the team needs them, but there's always that the handicap that they have as well. Is the team just going with them because it's an easy move for the team, or is the team going with them because they actually have incredible amounts of talent? I think Ferrari took on Charles thinking the latter, but just performance wise, it hasn't really been there fully. As much as I love Charles and as much as talented as I think he is, I think maybe Jack Doohan could have similar effects on Alpine in terms of being a company man, kind of doing everything by the books, not rustling too many feathers, but also probably not performing in a I guess all that to say he's probably a stopgap for Alpine.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to tell with some of these teams, just because you never know if it's the car or the driver. In some scenarios, like look at where Bottas has been in the last few years. It's just kind of nowheresville, and we know that he's capable of winning races. And his racecraft isn't, top tier in F1. I don't think he's a tier one driver, but he's definitely better, in my opinion, than a Perez. So sometimes it's just the car. So we'll see where Jack ends up in relation to Gasly. I think that'll be a big test. But also, I just looked this up. Mattia is actually joining Audi.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said he's joining Alpine.
Oh,
That
that's
is
because we were like talking about that for so long.
Yeah, yeah, and it
Yeah.
just hadn't happened. Yeah, you're absolutely right. My apologies there. Yeah, so yeah, I guess Ollie is going to be the guy to go to for all things Alpine. So he's young. I don't think he's as young as Christian Horner was when he took over Red Bull, but he's still a young team principal, and he has experience in F2. So yeah, I'm excited to see if the Ollie Oak effect takes place for real. I know I had kind of shit on Gasly throughout the first half of the season, um, just because the performance really wasn't there. But it seems like he pulled out a great race from his butt this past weekend. So I'm excited to see if that goes anywhere. Just I'm kind of tired of talking shit about Alpine, but not as much as I'm tired about talking shit about Logan Sargent, who we shall talk about now. News came out. He is out at Williams. Fairly new news. He will be replaced by Argentinian driver Franco Colapinto. It's a fun name to say. I'm excited to be saying that name for the rest of the season, hopefully. What are your initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, this. I say that it comes out of left field, but it really didn't. I mean, we had been speculating it, and there had been rumors for so long. Nobody actually ever thought it was going to happen after the third or fourth iteration of the rumor coming to pass. You know, all the drivers that could potentially replace him, the Mick Schumachers, the Kimi Antonellis, the Liam Lawsons were all kind of spoken for, and there wasn't a really good, obvious swap. But I guess that, you know, James Vowles was put in a tough position of knowing that Logan was going to be out the door, needing a replacement, and having a very costly set of accidents in the last couple of races. And so, yeah, I think Franco came out of left field for everybody. All the speculation, nobody had him on their bingo card, but he's part of the Williams driver pool. I actually haven't followed or seen any of his F2 results. So, and I'm
I
gonna,
think he's currently sitting in P6 in the F2 standings.
yeah. So, you know, we've shown that, you know, you don't necessarily have to translate 1-to-1 from F2 to F1 because, you know, Ollie Behrman isn't at the top of the standings, and he had a fantastic F1 showing. And so, you know, we'll see what happens. You know, obviously this is an amazing opportunity for someone. It's a little unfortunate because, you know, going into your F1 debut, you know, you're limited to whatever 9 races are left because the seat's already spoken for. But you know, with signs, but this is a great opportunity. It's a great resume builder, and you know, I think James Vowles was put in a tough position and just had to make a decision. So, you know, we all knew that Logan was going to be out. The F1 just wasn't the right fit for him, whether it was talent or pressure. The you know, the over extra pressure of being the U.S. de facto driver that got no U.S. fame or attention from the sport.
Yeah, maybe it's because he doesn't understand the metric system.
Yeah, I mean,
What the fuck's a
F1 people,
kilometer?
you have to understand what a kilometer is, and if you don't
Yeah,
know that, then you're out. And he was
yeah. That's
probably
why
talking
that's why we're not F1 drivers, Chris, because we don't understand the metric system either.
yeah, he got in the car and he's like, it's like 87 in here, 90 in here, and they're like, what? You'd be freaking dead if it was 90. Do you not know Celsius, bro? But yes,
Yeah, no. All joking aside, this is a long time coming. The the choice that they went with Franco, I mean, it's something cool to watch. At least it's something that we don't know this guy pretty well. He might come in and just blow our socks off, or he might completely flatline. But I'm always excited to see new blood on the grid. Right? I was even excited when Logan first got into the seat because I thought maybe someone saw something in him that we didn't see. I will say I was much more excited to see someone new like Nick DeVries come in and see what he had to offer than I did when they brought Danny Rick back in, right? Because you kind of know what you were going to get with Danny Rick. I know some people had hopes for a higher ceiling for someone like Danny, but uh, it's this thing could go one of two ways. You can have someone come back in and perform like Hulkenberg is doing and having like a second breath of his career, or you could have someone new come in and just completely wipe the floor with the veterans, right? Someone like Liam Lawson or Ollie Behrman. Maybe Franco has it in him, maybe he doesn't, but I think seeing him and Jack Doohan at least stirs the pot a little bit and kind of add some excitement to the back of the grid that maybe we just haven't seen in a while yet. So in that, I'm trying to be optimistic about this. I don't really know his driving style too much, but if he is P6 in the standings in F2, he can't be that bad. Uh, but we'll see, right? Um, this leaves the topic open of the remaining open seats. You want to go through that, Chris, real quick?
yeah, I mean, I know that technically the Mercedes seat is still kind of open, but Toto made a slip up and revealed the most open secret in F1 that Antonelli is going to be in that Mercedes seat. I think they'll officially announce it at Monza, considering Antonelli is Italian. But you know, Toto's bidding a lot on this kid, and I don't know how long the contract is for, but I'm excited to see if he has the chops to take it to Russell. It would put a huge smile to my face if he's able to potentially beat Russell in a few races or in qualification. That would be amazing. But I think Toto's making the next generation Max Verstappen long term play, and considering Max is already giving hints that he kind of won't be an F1 for the long term. So, Antonelli might be the future. We'll see. But I'm excited to see what he is. And then the only other two seats that are open are that V Carb Danny Rick seat and, whoever's going to ride alongside Hulkenberg at Audi, which I'm starting to really freak out that my boy Bottas is not going to be an F1 next year. And it's giving me a little heart palpitations. But I do you think Danny Rick's going to retain the seat? Given the fact that it's just going to be this long, I'm thinking no. I'm thinking it might be Lawson.
Yeah, I think in one way or another, I have like even the commentators on F1 kind of allude to the fact that they're looking for Yuki Tsunoda's partner for next year. So I think they mentioned that even on the race. So all signs point to Danny being out of a seat next year, which I'm not disappointed with because he showed he is who he is, right? He is the person that he is the driver that he was at McLaren. He is the driver that he was, on the tail end of his Renault streak, and that's a driver who's capable, but not going to win you any kind of, you know, it's not going to take your team to the next level or show promises of going up and to the right. So I think V Carb is going to retain Yuki Tsunoda. I think Helmet Marker already indicated that Liam Lawson will have a seat in one of the V Carbs or the RB next year. It could be weird as hell, but maybe it could be a situation where Liam starts at V Carb and then throughout the remainder of next year performs pretty well, and then they switch Liam with Sergio Perez, or maybe they even promote Yuki up to the RBC and then have Liam take over D1 position at V Carb and then completely oust Checo Perez. There are a couple of different ways. Or they could get some random person within their stable of drivers that we haven't really discussed yet. But it seems like all that to say, Danny Rick is probably going to lose his seat. Liam Lawson is probably going to get slotted in there. But I did want to touch on the Antonelli Mercedes piece. I think when it comes to legacy making, it might be the one area where Christian Horner has an edge on Toto. Obviously, Toto owns quite a bit of that Mercedes F1 team, which is what Christian's trying to do with the Red Bull team, and he's getting severe pushback from the leadership at Red Bull. But Toto never really had a driver that he built a legacy around completely, right? When you think about Lewis Hamilton, it was Nicky Lauda that encouraged him and got him to jump ship from McLaren to Mercedes. It wasn't, and I'm sure Toto had a hand in it, but by and large, it was Lewis's respect for Nicky Lauda that kind of sealed the deal. And then Toto ran with that yardstick as far as he could. But he missed out on building a legacy with Max Verstappen. And I think it's the one remaining thing left on Toto's, the notch in his belt, sort of say, is to take a young driver from its nascence and build him or her, or him in this instance, into a world champion. I think he had that aspiration with George. And George is, showing signs of becoming someone who could potentially win a WDC, but we're also seeing signs that he's maybe just below that cut.
Yeah.
And Antonelli could be another way for Toto to to exploit a young driver to reach a level that is a Max Verstappen or Fernando Alonso or Sebastian Vettel, right? So that's a project that Toto is really going to try to make come to light, I have no uh, empirical evidence of this at all, but just kind of looking back at Toto's relationships with his drivers, he never really had a chance to bring on a very young driver, groom them, and then have them become multiple time WDCs. And I know people are going to talk about Lewis Hamilton being the most winningest driver in F1. But again, if you just go back to the genesis of that transition from McLaren, it was prompted more by Niki Lauda than it was Toto Wolff. So I don't know. I think there is some credence in thinking about what is Toto missing in his career now. He's the F1 owner, which Christian isn't. He has multiple world championships and constructor championships under his belt. He had the most winningest driver ever in F1 history, but he never had that that prodigy that he's been able to kind of groom into a multiple WDC winner. So the more I think about it, the more I think about what's in it for Toto, right? And I think it's legacy. So I wanted to touch on that a bit, but Audi Sauber, dude, I couldn't tell you, man. I think they're keeping things so. I don't even think they're keeping things close to the vest. I just think they don't know what the hell they're thinking. They're like, we got our German guy, right, Hulkenberg, who's a solid driver. He probably will align really well with the Audi, like kind of German base. I mean, if they don't take on Valtteri, I'm just not sure who's kind of available right now. Esteban's been taken up. Carlos has been taken up. Liam is going to be accounted for with the RB camp. Kimi Antonelli's going to Mercedes. Oliver Behrman is going to Ferrari, or sorry, to Haas, which is essentially going to be the Ferrari family. So who's left? Especially since this is a team that's going to require a lot of veteran input to get that car up and running in a way that's going to be competitive. Because, dude, this past week they were dead last. Both of them were. So, what do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, uh, listen, I don't know how deep the talent pool goes in terms of where they're looking. Um, but if I was the team principal, and I know I'm kind of biased towards Valtteri, but I would give him a 2-year deal, let him run 2025, and let him be the guy to help develop the first year of 26. The guy has been in Mercedes, and he's a multiple race winner, and he knows what it's like to work with the best in the business. Mattia's just coming in. Jonathan Wheatley is just coming in over from Mercedes that Valtteri has experience with. And I think this will be invaluable to, developing the project. Then you can see where things are. If Valtteri is getting podiums or winning, or if he's aged out, then you've had a time to develop the car, get it to where you want it to be, and then get your young, hot, new guy and replace him in a couple years. That's just kind of what I would do. Like, you're going to have someone who's like stable and knows what they're doing and help develop. Um, but maybe they're on the hunt for like an up and coming new F2 guy that they can really build a program around. Same as Antonelli with Mercedes. I just don't think while you're in the position that you're in, you have that capability and flexibility to like build your team and develop a car while you're developing a young talent. But I also am not an F1 team principal, so
Yeah,
but we'll
I
see.
think I think having Jonathan Whitley, who's essentially a walking encyclopedia of the rule books for F1, is going to be a incredible asset to have in their stable. So yeah, I think what they need more now than ever, and you've said it already, Chris, is experience. I don't think they need to be out there looking for a dynamic young driver, which the pool is pretty short of right now. hence why Franco Colapinto is an F1 driver.
Yeah. Speaking of expertise and talent, where do you think Adrian's going to actually end up? Do you think he's going to stay in F1? Do you think he's going to retire? Do you think the rumors of him going to Aston Martin are true? There's been no official confirmations, and now there appears to be rumors that he hasn't signed anything yet for anybody.
After listening to his audio booking his book, he's always led in his younger years with the promise of like, where is the team that's going to allow me to showcase my designs and like my expertise around the technical piece. Um, but I think as the years went on, the concept of like money also started to kind of factor into his decision making process, which makes sense. And I think at this point in time, he gets to stay he doesn't have to move to Italy, right? He doesn't have to do anything like that. He gets to stay in England, and he gets a handsome payout via the Lawrence Stroll Foundation. And so I think Aston Martin makes a lot of sense. He gets to work with Fernando. Even if Fernando leaves as a driver, they'll probably have him somewhere as a poster child for Aston Martin, um, and and he can build a new legacy all his own. Away from the griminess that was Red Bull and Christian Horner, uh, and kind of just start from a fresh slate. He does have ties with Aston Martin. I think he worked on their Valkyrie project as well, so he does have certain ties there. And I think Lawrence Stroll is the kind of guy that'll open up his pocketbook for someone like Newey to be able to get Aston Martin to a place that he believes they should be. So yeah, I don't think the rumors around Aston Martin are completely void of truth, but the ink isn't signed to the paper yet, so anything is fair game. I feel like for Adrian Newey.
I mean, the only reason why I want to see Adrian end up at Aston Martin is because when the retirement eventually comes to fruition and Adrian finally writes his last memoir book, I want the clause to be in there. We would have done so much more without that kid in the seat. So
Yeah,
I want someone to come out and say it officially.
I'm sure he is. He's gonna have a clever way of putting that in, maybe like an anagram or something in his novel. But yeah, let's turn to winners, losers, hot seats, Chris. So in our winner circle, we have two of the same drivers. We got Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. What did you think about their races?
I mean, Lando had it together. Like, there's been multiple instances of Lando making mistakes, making poor decisions. Uh, Funnily enough, McLaren still feels like they're getting their sea legs when it comes to being a top team. They still have some team radio messages like asking, silly questions about like, what do we think we should do and that kind of stuff. And it just doesn't feel like, they have their Hannah that Red Bull has, just, making solid decisions and knowing what to do like 3 steps ahead of the game. But the car was fast. He was fast and he kept it together and didn't make too many mistakes. And, they pit at the right times. And, it just was an overall solid, race. And we'll see, like I said before, if they can repeat that at a different track, if it holds up and if that performance is going to stay. But, overall, there's a lot to take from this race from Lando and McLaren. And, we'll see if that driver swap for Oscar's first win is going to come back to bite them in the long run, because those 7 points are a little a little needed at this moment for this championship fight. But, we'll see. And then Leclerc, like, I don't think anybody thought he was going to podium, especially with Piastri is charging down and the gap that Norris is pulling on Verstappen. So very much props to him. He's kind of had an up and down year but when push comes to shove, he still shows that he's a very, very capable driver, and that talent is there. And hopefully, him and Lewis can, be a good driver pairing and work together. And hopefully, Fred can give them a car that's capable of winning races. Because I definitely want it for Lewis, but I want it for Charles as well.
Yeah, they both have last names that starts with LE.
Lele.
Lele. I put Gasly into my winner circle as well for reasons that I've already kind of went through earlier on this episode. But yeah, I shitted on him a lot in the first half of the season. He redeemed himself. I think if he keeps this up, I think he'll be able to at least scrape a couple of points going into the end of the year. But yeah, I got Norris, Gasly, and Leclerc in my winner circle. In my loser circle, I'm starting off with Mercedes, just to it sucks when your customer team just beats the shit out of you, quite honestly. And that's really all I got to say about that. Lewis, complained about straight line speed and not having enough of it pretty early on in the race, which was, as soon as I heard that, I knew that, it's kind of kaput. He didn't have the strongest qualifying, got that penalty for impeding on Sergio Perez. I think it's Sergio's fault because I just do. But I think Mercedes was kind of in my loser circle. It was really disappointing just kind of see their performance this weekend. And then everyone that finished after Logan Sargent this week. So that would be Zhou Guan Yu, P20, Valtteri Bottas, P19, Kevin Magnussen, P18, and Yuki Tsunoda, P17. All of those guys, shame on you. You should have done way better. You lost to Logan Sargent.
How dare you? And, Valtteri, I'll forgive you, but how dare you? Also, fun fact and small shout out to our boy Sam. He got to see the impeding incident live. He was at that turn and at the race, or at least
Oh,
at
nice.
qualifying. So he had to leave before the race, but he was there in qualifying. I got some cool videos. So,
Nice.
yeah, he was over at there was a convention over in Germany, so he made a quick stop over in Zandvoort.
We should go to conventions in Germany. I feel like that'd be way more fun than conventions in
Yeah,
fucking US.
what am I doing wrong with my career here? Yeah, I gotta change something up a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah.
so my loser seat, I'm gonna put Piastri in there just because we saw the speed gap. We talked about this already, but Piastri, ended behind where he qualified and has the skills and the car to do it. So no excuses for him. I think maybe he should have performed a little better. I don't know where the problem was, but I believe in this kid, and I want to see him win a championship one day. So I just think he could have done slightly better than where he performed. And then I have Red Bull in there just because the tides have officially turned, and I do think that they're in a little bit of trouble. We already saw. I don't know how much the philosophy of the car has changed, but we already saw Singapore is a disaster for them. So we know that that's going to probably be a very tough race for them. And, there's not that many races left. And if their performance and is where it is and there's no upgrades in the plan, then not only is Verstappen going to be under threat for losing the championship, but if he does win WDC, like barely getting podiums for the rest of the season, it's going to feel almost undeserved. But we'll see where they end up. But I have a Piastri and Red Bull in my loser seat for this week.
Yeah, I actually have Red Bull in my hot seat for exactly the same reasons. I think, everything's relative, right? So this kind of a falling off for Red Bull is way more impactful than a Williams falling off, something like that. This is pretty comparable to what Mercedes was going through when they were losing traction after the 2021 season. So I feel like very similar kinds of effects are starting to take place for Red Bull. And if the last couple of years have taught us anything about Mercedes, it's a long way to climb back when you do start falling off. So as quick of a rise as you can have, you'll have just as hard of a fall. And I think Red Bull might be teetering on that line of falling off the knife's edge. And then our dearly beloved Logan Sargent.
Rip.
our farewell to him, as the last time we'll put him in our hot seats or any seat. Goodbye, Logan.
Goodbye, Logan. Yeah, we knew as soon as the crash happened in qualifying, and not only that, that crash in qualifying was so or it was in practice. Sorry, that it was so reminiscent of a crash he had not too long ago, where he put his not just even the edge, but like almost a full tire into wet grass while going full speed into a turn, and that's just kind of massively unacceptable as a Formula One driver, um, and guaranteed a crash essentially in a lot of scenarios. So once I saw that, I was like, Logan, that's your career, buddy. And I mean, we already knew it was going to happen, but anyways, rest in peace, Logan. May we find another American driver who can get a point without half the field crashing out. So the other in my hot seat, the only other person I got in there is this whoever's running this Ferrari merch marketing department again. Shame on you. They have, I don't know if you've seen this, but they have some really cool looking Monza gear coming up. And it's some of the coolest looking gear that I've ever seen, especially the not race suit kits. And they have the ugliest sponsor logos on there. This giant yellow shell square and the giant blue HP logo.
They
While
got
every
two
other
of the HP logos too. It just looks so. One of them is right above their belly button. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
like it really makes, first of all, the double logo thing makes me hate Ferrari, but more it makes me hate HP for allowing it because it looks so forced. But
Yeah.
then on the other garment, like every other logo is fully yellowed out except HP. It's like, just play the game and have some cool merch. I would have bought this shirt to wear for when Lewis takes over. Now I'm not going to. You guys ruined it
And the thing is, why are they putting a yellow square around the Shell logo? The Shell logo is already yellow.
because they won't change the shell. It's like yellow orange, and they're like, we can't change this color. This is the shell color. So they add the square so they can be yellow. Like, come on,
God,
guys.
that looks so stupid,
It
man.
looks so
Like,
stupid.
yeah,
But
I hope that's a limited run and they only made like 5 of those shirts.
well, like when I first saw it, it's got the carbon fiber on the sleeves and the shoulders. I was like, I will buy this shirt, and oh my god, those logos are gross. So
Yeah, no, can't.
you know,
There are certain logos that, like, yeah, even though they're ugly, they look kind of cool. Like, there's like a cool ugly, like. So I've seen those before. This is just like tacky, you know. Um,
it's tacky. It stands out in the
yeah,
worst way possible. But
it's not nice.
and as soon as I saw it, I thought for a millisecond we're gonna get an all black Ferrari with yellow sponsor logos, and I
Oh
was like,
no,
wait a minute, no, we're not.
no, we're not gonna get any of that kind of
We
shit.
already had this debacle with the blue Ferrari, but
Yeah,
yeah. So like speaking of the outfit in the race, we got is Monza this week? Is it really back to back?
yeah. Monza's coming up on this Sunday. What are your predictions for that race?
Yeah, I mean it's hard to not put anybody but McLaren in the top spot now. I think Lando's gonna probably get his third. Um, what was the? Oh man, I wish I had that telemetry infographic for the top speed because Monza's all about speed. But I definitely think that Lando and the McLarens are going to put it up on the podium. It's hard to not put Max up there too, just because um, he's always up there and he's always fast. But if the car is not as quick as it used to be, I think they're gonna have problems. But let's go ahead and put him up there anyways. We're gonna go 1-2 Papaya with a Max in the third.
That's a safe bet. I'm gonna put Oscar in P1. I think all gloves are gonna come off. He saw that Lando can do a 20-second, lead on P2, so I think he's gonna just kind of put the pedal to the metal and get the same performance out of that car. So I'm gonna put Piastri in P1. I'm gonna put George Russell in P2, and I'm gonna put Lando Norris in P3 because why not? Uh, yeah,
Unfortunate, neither one of us have the Italian home favorites on the podium. So let's hope that they don't get killed by the Tifosi.
I mean, the Tifosi's probably used to the sheer disappointment, and they're probably looking forward to next year, anyways.
Always next year, baby. So
Always next year.
let's look at one last prediction for our new up and coming Italian who's going to be in the car for FP1. Do you think Kimi Antonelli can do better than P20 in free practice?
I think he'll get into either right at P10 or maybe slightly above it. But I don't anticipate he'll go anything past P10. I think the talent. I think I like to believe the talent is there with Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah, let's see. Like, there hasn't been a lot of first time, FP1 guys who've done super high in those standings, but it's always possible. And he will be in a Mercedes versus a kick Sauber, but I'm excited to see. I'm sure Toto probably gives him some sort of pep talk of, don't be a hero out there, just go out and get some laps and feel good in the car and get used to it. But I'm excited to see where he ends up and the kind of performance he puts in, because it's going to be, a very important for his experience for next year.
Yeah. Well, until next week. Goodbye, Logan.
Goodbye, Logan.
Hope you find your paradise.
Oh,
Well,
man. I'm sorry,
Logan
Logan.
Sargent, on to better things. Hopefully he gets a slot in IndyCar, but he might fuck that up too.
Yeah, well, he can crash into Roman Grosjean and they can have drinks afterwards, so it'll be great.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, we'll talk again next week after Monza. Until then, bye, everybody.
We'll see you after the home of speed. See ya. Thank you for listening. Shayem and I would love for you to join the Fan Team Radio community. So please like, subscribe, or follow on your platform of choice, and we'll see you next time.